Listen, all you people, come gather round. I gotta get me a game plan, gotta shake you to the ground. Just give me what I know is mine. People, do you hear me? Just give me a sign. It ain't much I'm asking, if you want the truth. Here's to the future, for the dreams of youth. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter here for your TVs and your money and your... No, wait, that's not us. That's the topic we got coming up. Yeah, you just wait.
Not for all that. I'm not for all that.
No, we are not for all that. But there are some people out there that do want it all. Speaking of having it all, we have, I think, all the snow we can handle. I have nowhere else to put it.
Let me tell you something. I am somebody who does not mind the winter. Okay.
Yeah,
but I am somebody who is wintered out right now.
Yeah.
And when pitchers and catchers report and spring training gets going, I just cannot wait to walk around Medicine Lake or go camping or go up to the cabin or go fishing.
Yeah.
That's all that gets on my mind is springtime. The Minnesota Wild are stinking it up.
The
T-Wolves
they'll come on strong at the end just to let us down.
They're always the champions of December. I do kind of like the T-Wolves, but I'm not a big basketball fan. So, it's time to sit there and count down the days until, we have the Masters and opening day. I mean, that's the surest tell signs of spring.
I suppose it is.
So, this winter stinks. I mean, the only good part about it was watching Amy Klobuchar turn into Frosty the Snowman on wherever she was.
It's global warming.
Was that Lake Calhoun, Lake Sokotoa, or whatever it's called now? Chief Running Chicken or something? I don't know what it's called.
Mamakusa, I think is what it's called.
Bam, ding, dong, ding.
Something like that. That was a little odd, talking about global warming in the middle of a blizzard, which I must say, Minneapolis' streets still haven't recovered in this last dump on there. I mean, what a dump of a city. I'm sorry if you live in and love Minneapolis, but I've done a little bit of driving around Minneapolis, and let me tell you, they don't plow. I don't know what they do.
Well, how do the bikers get around then?
Oh, those are clean. The bike lanes are clean. Bike lanes are clean. And any road that has a bike lane, they've paid some attention to that road because they had to come and clean the bike lane. But if you don't have a bike lane on your road, it's not plowed. It's not snow is not removed. It's virtual. Let's say an EMP went off in the middle of the country and Minneapolis was hit with the EMP and everything was just dead. That's kind of what it would look like.
So it looks like Hiroshima.
Kind of, yeah. People are stuck everywhere trying to push their car out of just the intersection because they can't seem to get over. There were so many intersections where I saw where a plow actually did come by, but it just left all the across major intersections, it would just leave a big wall of snow. And it's crazy.
Well, I've said before, I wouldn't live there for free. So,
there are enough people doing that.
Yeah, you're darn right about that, I'll tell you. But, I mean, Jay, what's your take of the presidential field so far?
Oh, boy.
I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but it seems like, Bernie's back now, but Bernie is probably to the right of some of these other candidates, in my opinion. I mean, Cory Booker's about as whack job as you can get. The Ugandan giant Kamala is just beyond crazy in my book. The lady from Hawaii is actually
Tulsi Gabbard.
She's actually somewhat level-headed. I really liked what she had to say about Syria. I thought it was well thought out and kind of a good articulation of. I don't want to call it non-interventionist, but. She said a lot of the things they've heard President Trump say about these undeclared wars, and that's a debate. When she was attacked heavily for it, I thought way out of line.
Yeah.
She might be a nut on other things, but I actually sat there and nodded my head while she was talking. When she was articulating a position on Syria. Of course, we got Pocahontas in the race.
Yeah. She doesn't have a shot.
Well, I mean, Here's
Although
the thing.
she is
We
like
keep-
fourth. Like if
we
if
keep
you look
saying
at
that,
the New
but-
Hampshire polls, she's fourth at like 14%.
Okay, but there's two polls you have to look at. One if former Vice President Biden gets in,
Right.
and one if he doesn't.
Right, and right now, if he doesn't, I mean, Kamala is in the lead,
But
which it's interesting.
Who's in the lead now is
But-
usually
yeah, right. But it's interesting though because you take a look at it. Her dad, I believe, came out and was
said something about her about
her
smoking
identity
pot or
politics.
something.
No, like he was
Oh.
down on her identity
Yeah.
politics. He did not approve of it.
But that's the modern Democratic Party. They have these constituencies that they have to keep angry.
Mm-hmm.
They got to keep them mad.
Yeah,
I mean, if you and here's a, Bernie Sanders in some ways I have some respect for. His announcement of getting in the other day shows where the party has moved.
Mm-hmm.
Sanders' previous campaign was about populism. It was about some of it he was right on, that you are getting screwed by some people. I think that President Trump uttered similar, like, different philosophy.
Exactly. That's
but
what I was going to say.
Different solutions.
Oh,
to
right.
it.
The government should do it versus the people should do
I
it.
agree, but
Yes.
the sentiment was similar. His speech to get in was angry. It was vile. It was name calling.
Mm-hmm.
He called for unity at the same time. He leveled a bunch of. You can just see what he thinks he has to do to get the. And I'm going to say Bernie has very little chance. I just feel like the Democratic Party doesn't want some 80-year-old war horse doing this. They
Right.
want a younger, more dynamic candidate. But Bernie's going to everybody's kind of competing for the Bernie part of it. If you sit there and you look at what's the difference between Bernie and any of these other people, they've all embraced what he's put out there.
Right.
So the gap there is open for that. I don't think there's such thing as a moderate Democrat anymore, but a
No.
non-completely crazy one.
Well, and that's where Amy's trying to run.
Yeah, but her voting record doesn't back up her
No.
reputation, and that's going to get under a national microscope.
Mm-hmm.
The Minnesota media won't touch her.
Right.
The Republicans in Minnesota won't touch her.
Right.
She's like the Colin Powell of Minnesota. No one will go after her for any reason. But,
Yeah.
when she's competing for these groups, I mean, it is not going to be simple to out. She's going to have to go left of her reputation. And I'll tell you what, Joe Biden's in a bind too. Second he gets in, what's the first question he's going to be asked? Green New Deal.
Right.
What's he say?
Exactly.
I think that's why he's dragging his feet. He's trying to come up with, and he's another 80-year-old guy who, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry, but I don't see people in Ohio, in Florida, and in Michigan who voted for the president turning around and voting for Kamala Harris. I just don't see that.
Yeah.
I could be crazy. The president needs to get out of Washington. He needs to focus on the economy.
Mhm.
That's his ticket to re-election. His approval rating is 60% on the. It should be 90, but Ronald Reagan didn't have a 60% approval rating on the economy when he ran for re-election. So the issue is there for him to run on. I just, hope he grasps it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that he's got a smart enough team that he probably will. I don't know if any of these far left people can hold the majority of the Democratic Party. That's not where the majority of the people are. That's where a small sliver of the people are. And unfortunately, those are the people that are most outspoken and kind of like the flavor of the day.
But
at this
those
point.
people are already voting Democratic. That's not who they need to get. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not who left them in 2016. And I just don't see that agenda. Although I've said this before, we're not a center-right country anymore.
Right.
I don't think.
Well, I don't know.
Am I nuts or am I nuts?
No. I mean, we've definitely moved leftward. maybe center. I don't think we're center left. I don't know.
No,
it depends on the issue.
And you can't look at one election or something as that. But,
right.
I just get the feeling that it feels like we have more and more people demanding things for free and not understanding that nothing is free.
Well, and that's an interesting case. I mean, you've seen the polls. I'm sure that most people, left or right, don't agree with socialism. But when it comes to the things they're actually getting for free, you don't find that same rejection.
Or you find people who don't really understand what socialism is.
Right.
I mean, I loved how AOC compared the wall that the president wants to build to the Berlin Wall. Well, she wasn't even alive when the Berlin Wall was going on, and that worries me. But there's not that perspective anymore. You know, the Berlin Wall was there to keep people in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was guarded with machine guns.
Yeah, they didn't stop people from getting into East Berlin. That wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
So you're not getting out of East Berlin.
Does she even know what communism is? I mean, she never had to live
I'm sure.
under.
I'm sure, but it was painted as this rosy thing from her professors and whatever. Maybe she's read Marx and maybe she hasn't. I've read the Communist Manifesto. I mean, you can see where, we've got a
classless society.
Yeah, exactly.
I've read excerpts, but I haven't.
Yeah, I've read it. I can lend it to you if you want. It's quite a barn burner.
I got Al Gore's book if you want that. I actually read it. The Balance.
I'd like to save some carbon by not reading it.
I'd like the world to save some carbon by not listening to Al Gore speak.
Well, there we go.
So
there we go.
So we handicapped the race there. I don't know why, but the things we come up with to talk about, I
don't know. But this next one, I mean, it kind of has been in the limelight a little bit. I mean, it's not gotten, I think, the attention it deserves. I mean, it's kind of unique for the Supreme Court to hear something and to come down with a unanimous ruling
I can't believe that.
For Ginsburg to write the majority opinion and have it something everybody agrees with.
Yeah, have Alito and Clarence Thomas and Chief Justice Roberts and all the people on her side I shouldn't say on her side, but I mean, all with a unanimous voice is pretty.
And I would say they're
incredible.
right.
I would say they're very much right. And I would say that it's a probably long overdue case to be challenged.
Yes.
About the Supreme Court taking up this excessive fines and forfeitures, which is actually in the Constitution, Jay. It's actually in the Eighth Amendment.
Yes, it is.
That the government cannot. Now, I think one of the seize your property or put excessive fines on you. Now here's the question: how is excessive defined?
That's great. It doesn't really. There's no real definition of that. I mean,
even in this case, and I don't want to read it to everybody. I'm just going to briefly summarize what happened. But a man got convicted he actually got his car seized before he was convicted of something, and they wouldn't give it back to him after he served his time.
Right.
He was caught on a drug bust. He's from Indiana, and Indiana basically, or whoever the agency was, I don't know if it was the state or what, seized his vehicle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they sold it or drove it themselves.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of times they do. A lot of times it's a sheriff's department will get involved in these seizures, these forfeitures, and they will auction the vehicles off. And that's why we're talking about this today, because this is a local issue, even though it was decided in the Supreme Court, very much affects county and city level government.
Yes, they have fines and forfeitures, and they use them a lot.
Oh, yes.
And, I think people would be surprised to know how much the law is, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in this country. The presumption of innocence, the right to confront your accusers.
Yeah.
We always side on, the side of you have to prove someone's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Not beyond all doubt.
Right.
Reasonable doubt. There's a reason it says reasonable.
Right.
And our forfeiture laws, especially here in Minnesota, are very much the opposite of that. They're very much the opposite of the presumption of innocence. Let me give you just one example, and we'll talk about a few. There's a Institute for Justice, Minnesota Criminal Forfeiture. I'm going to quote some of their statistics. They did some studies. It was last decade. The studies were. I'm sure all the info today isn't available, but you can also go to the state auditor's office and see how much stuff in 1 year has been seized, and forfeited, or sold off, or whatever. But, and this has to do with DWIs. If the owner of a vehicle, let's say somebody gets pulled over for your DWI, Jay, and they're having a rootin' tootin' time.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are not the owner of the vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that the car still can be seized by the police? And the burden of proof is on the owner, not on the government agency. Listen to this. If an owner was not the violator,
yes,
the vehicle is not subject to forfeiture if the owner can demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that the non-driving owner either did not have actual or constructive knowledge that the vehicle would be operated unlawfully, or took reasonable steps to prevent the use of the vehicle by the offender. If the offender is a family or household member and has 3 driving convictions, the owner is presumed to know that any vehicle offender is contrary to the law, limited to a violation of driving without a valid license, failure to produce insurance, DWI, underage drinking, open bottle. In addition, vehicles that are subject to a security interest or a long-term lease are subject to interest unless the secured party or the lesser blah blah blah. I don't want to read all that, but listen to what I said there.
Yeah.
So if you borrow your car to somebody, or your kid takes your car, or whatever,
okay,
and they get pulled over for DWI, the burden is on you to prove that you either didn't know it or couldn't foresee it or whatever, or your vehicle can be, quote, seized. Now, this is before convicting anybody of anything.
Wow.
Now, that's written in Minnesota state statutes. 169A.63 subdivision 7.
Now, that would seem unconstitutional to me, Andrew.
Well,
I mean, you look at the Fourth Amendment, which it says it protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures of property by the government.
Right, but what they're going to argue is you're on a public street, and there will be a public interest in you driving impaired and having that vehicle taken away from you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's BS.
But what about in the instance of being an owner but not an operator?
How about if the car gets stolen?
Yeah.
There was no exception there to the car being stolen.
No.
You'd have to prove you didn't know. I suppose, what if it would have to be reported, I'm sure.
Yeah.
A car can get stolen while you're sleeping.
Right.
Can't it?
Oh, yeah. But we know this. I mean, things get forfeited. The government comes and takes them. And there are many, many, many cases where somebody has been proven innocent, whether they didn't commit the crime or they didn't know that whoever had their vehicle was going to commit the crime or what have you. And they, like you said, don't get their property back. And that's a huge problem.
Well, and I'll tell you also, if somebody gets pulled over and they have drugs on them or they're suspected of drugs,
right,
you can pretty much seize anything you want to under Minnesota law. You can seize cash, jewelry, the vehicle, all because you can claim that was all proceeds from possession with the intent to sell, even if it wasn't, and the burden is on the accused.
Yes.
It's not on the people to prove that.
Mm-hmm.
The burden is to prove that you didn't. Now, here's a little snidbit this is from a law firm, DWIMinneapolisLawyer.com. According to Minnesota motor vehicle forfeiture law, a law enforcement officer has the legal authority to seize a DWI suspect's motor vehicle at the time of arrest. That can be seized. Following the seizure, the prosecuting attorney or agent will then serve a notice of intent to seek a forfeiture of the motor vehicle. So, okay, I seized your car. I intend to sell it.
Yes.
If you've been served with a notice of this, it is important to note that you have the right to judicial determination for a judge regarding whether your vehicle should or should be not forfeited. So once again, the burden's on you.
Right.
To go do this. You must file a challenge to the forfeiture within a specific period of time for the date which you are served the notice of intent. If the challenge is not made, then you waive your right to a judicial termination of forfeiture. So once again, the burden is on the accused, not the convicted.
Right.
Okay. Important to draw that distinction.
Yeah.
But the thing that really is irritating is you look in a city budget today, fines and forfeitures, and go look at how either steady that revenue is or how much it's growing. So is there a financial incentive to be doing this?
Of course.
So, the Institute for Justice, Minnesota, and I'm not the biggest fan of the Institute for Justice either. Sometimes I like what they say, sometimes I don't. They have done several studies, several things. Some of this is a little dated. But it's important to go back and look at some of the things that they have put together here. This is under Minnesota Criminal Forfeiture at their website. Civil forfeiture, listen to this part. The government can take and sell your property without ever charging you with a crime, let alone convicting you of one. It may be transferred to the government after an individual is convicted, and they can use that forfeiture to take away, and it's not limited to cars, cash, homes, other property, without charging the owner with any wrongdoing. So, in other words, there is a financial motive now for doing this. And I want to call attention to some of the studies they've done about this. Hang on, I got it in my papers here somewhere. Where the hell is it? My stack of stuff. Jay, I just had this.
Yeah. Well,
I'll find it.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Well, and this is the crazy part about this is that you don't have to be convicted. They can just, they can take it in a bust. Like I was saying, you can be completely acquitted, and you may never get your stuff back. And that, to me, is insane, because you're talking about a government that just can come in and take stuff, and it's different than back when they confiscated all the gold.
Yeah.
But still, just as wrong. You had people that had this private wealth, and it was ripped away from them. And I don't think there were really any reparations made for that.
Of course not. Well, here's the thing too. There is a profit motive. There's actually law in Minnesota of how the money gets divided up.
Okay.
And I'll find that back here in a second.
You and I don't get any, do we?
I don't think so. Do you got an account at your local city there? You got an account there? Okay, well then you don't get any of it. But and this is treated like revenue. Mm-hmm. There's a formula that 70% of the money goes to the police force, 20% goes to the prosecution's office, something like that. But here's the thing too. Law enforcement agencies in Minnesota, so we're talking about police, sheriff's departments, that kind of thing, netted $30 million from 2003 to 2010 in taking more than 34,000 pieces of property, including cash, vehicles, other types. The Institute estimates that it's the equivalent of one piece of property for every resident of the city of Roseville.
Wow.
So just to give you an idea. Forfeitures grew 75% from 2003 to 2010, even as the crime rate declined. So the crime rate went down, but money from forfeitures grew 75%.
That's amazing.
A lot of them came from small busts. Only 4% were worth more than $5,000. They're not getting the big drug lords. I mean, I'm sure that's what they think. A lot of people think, that they're pulling over Tony Soprano and busting him with whatever they have, but that really isn't the case. And they really went after our favorite group, the Metro Gang Strike Force.
Really?
Remember that back in one of Rich Stanek's great minds things to do there. And listen to what there was a report done by a U.S. attorney and a retired FBI agent, Andrew Lugor and John Egelhoff.
Okay.
There was an analysis done of their operations. The Minnesota Commissioner of Public Safety, whoever that is the one that put this together. And they were accused, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if any cops ever got, or anybody ever lost their job over this. Police officers took things for their personal use, including narcotics. Some of them were never entered into any evidence. They stopped individuals that had no connection to gang activity and seized their money and property. They seized funds without the intent of filing charges against them. Even things where they had a warrant to go in. Other things were seized, like money, computers, jewelry, televisions, all sorts of things like that. They actually the employees were accused of using the term money police to describe their focus on financial seizures.
Wow.
So this is a 36-page report that was put together by an attorney and a former FBI agent about what happened during this gang task force.
Huh.
So pretty rotten stuff when it comes to this. Now, where's who puts a lid on this? Is my question. Because the Supreme Court can come along, like we said, and say, well, and strike down one case.
Yeah.
But what does that do for all states and localities? Because they all do this now.
Oh, yeah.
Every sheriff's office seizes things and claims it's ill-got of stolen property. They don't have to prove it, but they can still keep the stuff.
Right.
So what's going to be the result of this is my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially when there's so much allegation, again, I guess, innocent of proven guilty, but
Sure.
So much allegation around some of these folks keeping some of what they get. That's not something, obviously, they're going to want to give up. I'm not saying that police are dirty. I'm not saying that all the people on the Metro Gang task force are guilty of keeping stuff that's made up of almost all, I'm sure, like really good cops that have a concern over what's going on in our area. But
as always, the bad ones ruin it for everybody.
Right. There are those that are, and
here's and not to interrupt, Jay, but here's another thing. There's the auditor's office. And the last time they had a report on this was 2013. I can't find anything. I'm at auditor.state.mn.us, and I somehow maneuvered over here to this. It's a criminal forfeitures in Minnesota for the year ending December 31st, 2016. They got pie charts here on what was seized.
Yeah.
Would it shock you to know 58% of property seized were vehicles, 28% was cash. Guess what was 13%?
TVs.
I might have guessed that. You know what it is? It's firearms.
Oh, I suppose that makes sense.
So firearms are seized,
Yeah.
even if you are a legal gun owner and have, so somebody gets a warrant to search your house for drugs or something. They can seize your firearms, even if they're registered and haven't been fired in 10 years. And are sitting locked up and you're bolted down in your safe
not
or
used
whatever.
in a crime. Yeah.
Right, but they can come in and seize your firearms.
It's one thing to take a firearm that has been used in a crime. It is totally another thing to just come in and take somebody's firearms.
Right, but you're just disarming them.
Right. And what keeps the government from using that as a pretext to take our firearms just because they want them? They want an unarmed public.
They do. I mean, and with all due respect, a lot of law enforcement does as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of people. A lot of law enforcement is lobbies for gun control.
Yeah.
They don't all, obviously. I mean, clearly they don't.
Most of them own guns privately.
Yeah, but they're cops. They have special privileges. And again, not dumping on all police. I don't want that thrown at me. But here's another pie chart they've got. Listen to this.
Okay.
Final disposition of property seized subject to forfeiture. 40% of it was sold. 25% was cash. I don't understand what that means. It was sold.
You can't sell cash, I suppose.
Okay. So they just kept the cash. Only 21% was returned to the owner.
Wow.
7% was destroyed, junkyard, and only 1% was retained.
What would you be retaining?
Well, a car might be used as like an undercover car or something.
Yeah.
Cash might be used for the police bonus or ball that year, maybe. I don't know.
A bunch of commemorative plaques.
Could be letters or medals of accommodation. But I also want to just to show how big this is.
Yeah.
This report, by the auditor's office, is 254 pages long. Starting on page 22,
Yes.
is the list of what was seized in this state for 2013.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'm still going through it to see where it ends.
Yeah.
Hang
Should
on.
I be counting? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
No, you're not rushing the passer here. That's what you did on football.
Right. Exactly.
I'm still going through it. I'm on page 160.
It sounds like a comprehensive annual financial report.
I'm still just in Olmsted County.
Oh my word. This makes for exciting radio, doesn't it, folks?
It sure does. I mean, my God.
It's longer than Santa's
Basically, it goes all the way to page
naughty nice list.
Yeah, page 235. So there's over 200 pages of things that were seized. They're supposed to be writing what happened to the disposition of it, but of course, we don't know from this report whether someone was convicted of anything, whether seizing their money in their wallet was warranted with any of this.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a lot of crimes, theoretically speaking. 250 pages worth of forfeitures. Not all crimes require a forfeiture. I mean, it makes it sound like Minnesota is like the armpit of the nation. But yet, I mean, you would find the same kind of list, I would assume, in any state.
Probably. I mean, what's to stop them? I mean, but doesn't it kind of feel like the whole country is like Hazard County now? That Boss and Roscoe are out trying to figure out when they stop somebody. Okay, I mean, this is my fear. You stop me for speeding, okay? That doesn't give you the right to take my money or take anything that's in my vehicle. It doesn't even give you the right to search it as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
it's not a pretext. So if somebody comes in and they, let's say you're suspected of DWI,
Right.
but you don't get you get tested or whatever, and you're not. Can they look in your car then?
Was it a reasonable cause?
What's reasonable cause?
Exactly.
I mean, what? How do you go from a DWI to seizing my property? Even if that's my car, it's still my property.
Yep.
If I'm suspended from driving, that's one thing. That car's still mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, they should never be able to seize my car.
Right. Was the car used in a crime? Convicted of being used in a crime?
Even if it
Even
is,
then,
it's still,
your property.
I don't know. I mean, and then fines are out of control. I mean, I think cities are always going around going, we had this issue in Golden Valley of them having a building inspector that's job. New Hope did this too, where their job was to go around and find code violations, and they bragged that the revenue would pay for the officer.
Right.
Is that a little? That's okay. What is the difference between that and Boss Hogg hiring Enos and Roscoe P. Coltrane to put a phony speed trap on, Route 66 in Hazard County? What's the difference?
There's not one. Like Big Lake, I know a while back there was a big hubbub about all the snow that we're getting, and there was a fine for not clearing your sidewalk like along the street side, not like up to your house, and it was over $200, and they were given a break where it was going to be half of that for a while, or they were going to waive it or something. Turns out that through some sources, we found out that it cost $35 for the city to come clear that sidewalk. So they're making a little bit of money on that.
Yeah. Well, it's like making money on your water bill or making money on your, putting the organized garbage hauling. That's another thing where I believe the cities take a cut out of that money that comes in that one contract. I mean, because once you bring in the one contract, isn't it the city that sets the price?
Yeah.
You mail it into the city, and then they contract so they can charge whatever they want to.
But I mean, it's not uncommon for cities to hire a traffic police officer to drive around in an unmarked vehicle to just hand out speeding tickets and look for people that roll through stop signs
or tickets for anything.
Yeah,
anything from jaywalking to you're measuring the height of a sign or height of your fence.
Right.
I mean, again, there's no limits really on what they can or can't do. But but to have just to me, the whole hallmark of our judicial system is that you are innocent until proven guilty, and I think we forget that sometimes. I've accused things like Me Too and things like that, and the mainstream media, Duke Lacrosse. I mean, how many times have people been the Covington kids case recently?
Yep.
How many times have people been convicted? Who was the guy who said, "Where do I go to get my reputation back"? Who was that guy?
I don't know.
Okay, but I mean, how many times is somebody convicted, and with the help of the media in the court of public opinion?
It happens all the time.
Right, and they never, and they never actually are convicted of anything. I mean, politicians go through it a lot.
Kavanaugh.
Sure, I mean, and you're convicted of nothing, yet your reputation's destroyed.
Yep. And like this whole deal in Virginia. I mean, you've got this governor, and I guess the third in line was the state attorney, or
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
Who supposedly, dressed in blackface.
Can I ask a question?
And then you've got the guy in the middle, the lieutenant governor, who supposedly had, sexually offended some people. But Nobody's gone through a court case. Nobody has been convicted of anything, and just the demands that you all got to go. You all got to go. But nobody's been convicted of anything.
Well, can I ask what is blackface?
That is like when a white person puts something on their face to make them look like they're African American.
Okay, so if I, for Halloween, went as Barry Bonds, okay.
You have to go as the albino Barry Bonds.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So now, if I understand, the governor of Virginia was a teenager when he did this.
Something like that.
Correct?
Or college, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so it was...
It was 1980.
Okay, so...
We lived in a different time back then.
Well, but, I mean,
yeah.
Whether we did or we didn't, I mean, if it was a... I mean, let me give you an example. I like to impersonate former President Obama.
Yeah.
Okay? I think I'm pretty good at it. I've worked at him for a long time. Because there's lots to do. You always remember, he always says it very fast at the end. If I actually went somewhere and like how Frank Caliendo would get up and he'd dress like, and look like Dr. Phil or something.
Yeah.
Would I have to go as the white Barack Obama?
Yes, you would.
Or I'm a racist if I do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally looked on as bad nowadays, so...
Boy, I'll tell you. I mean, we can't... I won't even go there because there's just nothing good that can be...
But, I mean, the point is, you've got 3 people in trouble in Virginia, and they're all Democrats, and here we are standing up for them and saying... People need to be convicted before,
well, I think in politics, it's Richard Nixon was never convicted of anything. I mean, there's that standard too. There is conduct that I think it's okay to hold your public officials to higher standards. But when you're 16 or 18 years old, I don't know how many people make decisions based on, well, when I'm 50, I might be governor, and somebody's going to look up a photo of me, so I better not do this. I mean, find me the 16 or 18-year-old that says that, thinks that way.
Right.
I'd like to know.
But those two aside, I mean, the lieutenant governor, whether he engaged in sexual misconduct or not, we don't know. There's not been a trial. There's no conviction. That is something where somebody needs to be removed if they've done it, but not until it's been proven.
Well, but I'd like to know, what's the evidence? Where's the accused? I mean, he has a right to confront his accuser. So he has a right to challenge the evidence.
Right.
He's got a right to his defense. So why is it that the double standard of 1 minute, somebody like Keith Ellison, nobody calls on him to do anything.
Right.
But somebody who's in a different state or another person, everybody rushes to call for it.
Yeah.
So what's the standard?
Well, standard is be innocent until proven guilty.
No, the standard is whoever's weaker politically. That's who we go after.
Well, there's that. Who can you hold something over till you need a favor from them? I mean, that's kind of...
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say it too, because I think Me Too has been helpful in some ways, but it's become exactly what I hope it wouldn't become. Yeah. It's become a witch hunt.
Right.
It's accusing dead people. I mean, it's become, and I feel very badly for women who have been mistreated. I mean, there's no excuse for it. Don't give me this locker room crap or all boys club stuff. They deserve protection under the law, and they deserve equal opportunity 100%. But I also feel like the people who are being accused, I just put myself in that position. Yeah. If I were innocent of something and I got accused of something, I mean, I don't know how I'd react to it. Probably blow a lid.
It's hard.
But, I mean, what do you do? A certain percentage of people are just going to believe it.
Yeah.
They don't care what you have to say, especially if they don't like your politics.
Exactly.
So what's the middle ground here of and those things are hard to get convictions on.
Mm-hmm.
They just are. I mean, especially a 20-year-old case or witnesses are dead if there are any.
Right.
Physical evidence is destroyed. So it becomes he said, she said.
Right.
Or she said, if it's Butch and Tony. But I mean, how do you reconcile? I mean, the whole thing that this, going back to what we're talking about here, it is written in the law, okay, that the burden is on you to go get your own stuff.
Yeah.
And how wrong that is.
It just turns the entire justice system on its head. But, I mean, that's no different. That's what progressives have been trying to do in every area, for 100-plus years now. 120 years almost. They have been working at turning everything on its head so that things don't mean what they used to mean, so that there is a much more fluid way to look at things so that they can get their ideas in. And it's no different with our justice systems, because it's become all about, rather than justice, it's become about equity, although it's weird. I mean, a lot of people would say that there is no equity and justice either. And I mean, you look at our prison system, and obviously, there are far more African Americans than there are, other races. There are
percentage-wise.
Well, percentage-wise, that's what. I should clarify that.
But what does that mean, though? That means the system is racist. I mean,
I'm not saying that it's racist. But although I think that sometimes the laws that we choose to enforce can affect the poorest more than they do sometimes those that.
They're also the least likely to have good legal representation.
Well, that's true as well. And when you've got a culture that throws people into jail for possession of just a little bit of drugs versus
paraphernalia.
Yeah, versus people, you get caught of tax evasion, you go to some posh country club, and it's so different than somebody who's got a little bit of hash on them, It's... there are...
You said something critical, though, the laws we choose to enforce.
Well, that's it.
Can this discussion also go into what you and I have not mentioned enough on this show, that's constitutional sheriffs?
Yeah.
Where it is not the job of a sheriff to enforce state law.
No.
Their job's to enforce county stuff.
Yep.
The city's job's to enforce city law.
Right. The sheriff is the chief law officer of the county.
Right. So Roscoe P. Coltrane's job is to enforce Hazard County law.
Right.
Not take I don't know how to put this, but not take whatever state, because here's the problem with that. I mean, state has a lot of laws, and I think they rely on non-state law enforcement to work them.
Right.
And that leads to unequal enforcement of the law.
Yeah.
One county might enforce the law this way, one county might enforce the law that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have unequal justice under the law.
Right.
So if we went to a constitutional sheriff,
yes,
constitutional police chiefs, aren't we going back to like what we talk about? Cities responsible for city roads, counties responsible for county roads, states responsible for state roads.
Yep.
Why don't we do the same with law enforcement?
Well,
is it 100% workable? Is it pie in the sky that I'm going for? I mean,
it shouldn't be. I mean, everybody in law enforcement should take an oath to protect and serve the Constitution.
But I mean, I'll give you an example. Let me give you a less violent example.
Okay.
Hennepin County has a curfew law.
Yes.
Hennepin County has a law against e-cigarettes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it up to every city, to go out there and enforce that?
I would say no. It's a county law.
So are we arguing for nullification? by a city? Is that nullification?
That's such a tough question, because you don't want people to just choose what laws they enforce and what laws they don't. It's something that I wrestle with, when I think about.
I am with you.
I mean, you've got cities that have said we're not going to prosecute, or states even, that we're not going to prosecute, for marijuana. We will for other drugs, but we're not going to for marijuana. They have allowed kind of legalization of those, leaving DEA agents to come in.
Right. Immigration has worked the same way.
Right. You've got sanctuary cities and stuff. And I don't know, this has been rolling around in my head a couple of days, and you make a good point. I mean, we're talking about making room for people that came here illegally. We're talking about somebody's drug habit. What about for life? What about if a city said, you know what, we're not going to allow a place to come in and set up within our city borders and perform abortions, or even late term abortions. Let's not even push the envelope. You do anything after the first trimester, we find out about it, you're going to get a warning, and we might suspend your license for 30 days. 3 infractions, you're out of business. What if a city made a way for that to happen on something as important as life? Do you draw the lines differently? Is nullification okay because you're saving a life versus just,
But I mean, as the state and federal governments continue to grow in power, local governments have to have some sort of tools to be able to. Now, I think immigration is different because you're talking about non-citizens. To me, that's a federal issue, not a local one, where, we have a border. The president, whoever it is, takes an oath to defend that border.
Yeah. And
to me, cities don't have the right to come in and say, look, we don't care what the Constitution says or what. This isn't a smoking ban here.
Right.
Okay, this is we're going to not only and I mean, there are cities around here. Brooklyn Park is one.
Yeah.
That has basically taken a stance that they are not going to cooperate with ICE or anybody else. Not making Brooklyn Park a sanctuary city. If they come in, they're not going to share information with another law enforcement agency.
Right.
Now, what if Ted Bundy escaped from prison, which he did several times,
yes,
and ended up in Brooklyn Park? Hey, well, we're not going to cooperate with the FBI. Everybody would be outraged.
Right.
What are you talking about? There's a killer running around. I'm not comparing illegal aliens to Ted Bundy. I'm just saying, where do you make it? See, because what it feels like is if a city agrees with something, they think they've got the right to do it. Mm-hmm. If they don't agree with something, then they think they've got the right to stop it. So, what is the standard?
Well,
the standard is
it's ambiguous at best
depends.
At this point. Yeah, great example is at the federal level again. President Trump signed this emergency order to build the wall. There was a bill going through the House to. It was terrible. It was, to fund the government, but it had all this stuff in there to protect illegal aliens that came in, that you couldn't prosecute anyone that was a child that for being in the country illegally, a child, family member of a child, someone who might take care of a child, someone who could possibly at some point in the future take care of a child, someone who lived with someone who might take care of a child. It was terrible.
So it was aunt, uncle, grandma, best friend.
All sorts of stuff. But it also said in there that the president was only allowed to build the wall in a certain place along the Rio Grande, and that anything else would be up to or subject to the vote of local government bodies. So you would have the city councils in those places where the wall was going to go having to agree to it. Now, along that south border in Texas, that's pretty blue territory there. And so, of course, they're not going to build
It's also the blue part of Arizona.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
California. I mean, San Diego is not. But yeah.
Well, but here comes the other thing. If you're the president, I mean, to me, it's the perfect excuse to put the military on the border.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the commander in chief. You're not sending them to war.
Right.
I don't know that the National Guard might be complicated with being states, but he could throw the reserves there if he wants.
Right. But
I think the president's trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
I think he tried and tried and tried 5,000 times to cut a deal, and I think it's come to what it's come to. Look. There's a lot of people who have an opinion on this national emergency. I've put it this way: if people coming into our country illegally, I've called it an invasion, which some people don't like to hear. If that's not a national emergency, what would qualify as one?
I'm not saying it's not a national emergency, but what's now that he has opened up this way? I mean, the Democrats have already said when we're in power, we're going to declare an emergency on climate change.
They're going to do that anyway.
We're going to.
President Obama declared national emergencies to aid foreign countries.
Yeah,
this precedent's been set already. I mean, that's what.
This is a little different use of it, but it's because. But anyways, I mean, my point was, with the local governments, I mean, how much power really do they wield? I mean, because the federal government is then saying they want to give the power to build the wall over to the local governments, but it's a national security issue, which the Constitution gives to the federal government. So where's the line drawn? Who really holds the power in that situation?
Bottom line, if something gets forfeited or seized... Well,
and that's the thing.
Burden's on you.
Again, that's not a property owner committing a crime, but in the name of crimes being committed with illegal aliens coming over, they're going to seize land to build that wall. They're going to use eminent domain, which, as you know, they do not pay fair price on.
Of course not. And I mean, in some cases we already have fences or walls. There are some cases where I'm sure it's government-owned property.
Yeah.
They don't have to do that. Eminent domain. I mean, the Keystone Pipeline, eminent domain was going to be used. I don't even know whatever happened to that, but eminent domain was all over that. Mm-hmm. And so you have to come back and go, okay, well, at what cost are we, even though I agree with the project, what cost does it come at?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, look, I mean, the government abuse, I mean, here's what I encourage people to do. Go to your city budget and look at fines and forfeitures and see what they get in a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that'll be eye-opening.
I bet it's 5 figures in every city around the Twin Cities.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it's like the old, and again, I think it's always easier to pick on law-abiding people. You know what I mean? It's always easier to pick on the person who's easier to get.
Right.
So I think it's easier sometimes to go nail somebody for jaywalking than it is to go solve a murder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are decisions being made for financial reasons? Are things being seized or not given back or fines being leveled because they're anticipating X amount of money coming in for that? And if they don't get it, what are they sacrificing? Mm-hmm. I use the term sacrifice loosely. What are they not getting that they otherwise would? I mean, if you're budgeting $40,000 in fines and forfeitures and you bring in only 20, then you're going to get Enos and Cletus and Roscoe in a room and say, "Look, you got to go out. You got to get more.
Right?
We need it. You want that new those new radar guns or whatever Roscoe used, a hairdryer. I mean." That's where the money's going to come from.
Yeah.
So there's I don't want to call it a profit motive, but I mean,
some cities do.
Boy, that's what we need to. I mean, but look at that auditor's report. I just want everybody out there to go to that 2013 auditor's report and look across the state at hundreds of pages of what was seized and taken and the result of it. 21% going back to the owners. I doubt they were 79% conviction rate. That's what I doubt.
Yeah.
So, so what happened to the Is the sheriff's vehicle something that they seized in an alleged bust, or somebody couldn't, didn't get their waiver to go show up and prove their innocence?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a dismal number. That's not enough, I think, being returned. But
and as always,
yeah.
What a great, you and I just float into these great discussions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What a great discussion this is, because
Yeah.
I am, look, here's the thing. I like learning new things. I am unabashed in saying that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to reconcile completely I know we're community solutions here,
Yeah.
but what's the solution to federal versus state versus local?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with
don't
you
know.
that local should be the most important,
Mhm.
but does it depend on the issue?
I think to a point it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well, the
think
Constitution
the Constitution
needs to be
it should be the driver. And if it's not found in the Constitution, then it falls to the states and the
Ninth and
localities.
10th Amendments.
And then you look at the Minnesota Constitution, and if it's not found in there, it falls to the localities.
Yeah, I'd like to
That's
ask
just-
some of these candidates for president if they can recite the 9th and 10th Amendments. I think Cory Booker knows what they say.
Cory Booker doesn't know what planet he's on half the time.
Because he's an Ivy Leaguer. What are you talking about? Isn't he an Ivy Leaguer?
He also thinks he's Spartacus.
I don't know what he thinks. I don't think he thinks much.
Well,
Well, I mean, hopefully check out these studies, check out that auditor's page, and check out your own city and see what they're getting in fines and forfeitures, and see if them fines have gone up recently. Maybe there's one they're nailing more people for, so they, it's like the gas tax.
Right.
Go nail everybody.
Ah.
Except the bikers in Minneapolis.
well, yeah, that's a whole other
Want to nail
issue.
with something else.
Whole other issue. Maybe you're looking through these documents. Maybe you'll actually do it. Dig it up, look through it, and say, hey, they're taking a lot of money in this. What do you do about it? They're taking money somewhere, whether it's property taxes, whether it's through setting up TIF districts, whether it's fines and forfeitures, whether it's, writing bonds and making you pay all this money back in interest with the principal. They're taking your money one way or another, probably multiple ways. What do? You contact us, because why? We can help you get on an advisory commission, which then will help you get into entry-level governing. You'll be able to give recommendations to your city council, your school board, your county board, and through that, you may find that you're happy doing that. You may find that you've got a knack for it and you want to step into city council or being on a school board or county board, and we can help you with that too. We can just come to your group and talk to you about how to get involved and how to recruit more people to be involved. Get a hold of us. COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to talk it out with you. This is something that is not going to go away on its own. Power always begets more power. People that have power want more of it. Only good people standing up is going to be able to stem the tide of this stuff. And so how do we do it? It's by getting involved. So let us help you. One thing you can do, share this podcast with everybody you know. Share our blog with everybody you know. Help them to get informed, because we've got 10 plus years of wisdom that we've laid out there for you guys to be able to take advantage of and look like you're, not that you're not super smart, but be able to have that knowledge at your disposal without the learning curve, and show up and just speak intelligently to your neighbors, your friends, and your family. And this is what I say every week, but it's true. We've done our part over 10 years. We've done our part, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work. I get too caught up